feature that it's easy to assume from festival pics that currently hot Romanian cinema is all grungy, divi-shot, miserabilist dramas. So at the same time, critics mesmerized by the Romanian movies as well as the unfavorable ones noticed a new cinematic style and recognized even in passing some of its traits, among which is the capacity to create authentic depressive dramas. It is obvious that besides the image of shabby communist blocks of flats, typical for Eastern films, the Romanian dramas after 2001 brought something new, not only in terms of technique, that is direct sound or the use of portable camera. I dare say to consider that in comparison with Romanian New Wave dramas, the neo-realist ones seem downright melodramas. To persuade you of that, I shall compare Cristi Puiu's film The Death of Mr. Lazarescu from 2005, Aurora, also by him from 2010, and the film by Corneliu Porumboiu, Police Adjective from 2009, with Vittorio De Sica's Umberto D from 1952, and Bicycle Thieves, also by Vittorio De Sica, film made in 1948. Several quotes from important film critics also serve to my attention due to their prestige and brevity. The reasons for which I chose such terms of comparison are obvious, as they are representative for Romanian New Wave, respectively for the Italian neorealism. Most films consider Bicycle Thieves as the most important neorealist film, while George Sadul and Paolo Russo choose Umberto D. On his turn, Leonard Maltin writes about Umberto D. that De Sica is said to have considered this his greatest work, and he may have been right. Another reason for choosing these films is that their plots are similar. Umberto D. and the Death of Mr. Lazarescu deal with old men and their pets whose existence is in danger. Something else in common is that two women are interested in their fate. On their turn, Bicycle Thieves and Police Adjective have a detective plot. Umberto D. is a likable pensioner. He's an intellectual forced to sell his books, full of dignity in terms of Sadul, unable to beg and concerned at the same time about the fate of his young pregnant housekeeper and of his playful mongrel dog. On his turn, for the audience and his neighbors, Lazarescu is just an old man who uses to drink and whose apartment smells like cat urine. He's quite unpleasant in his pajamas, especially after he peed on it after several trips from one hospital to another. For Leonard Maltin, Umberto D. has a tear-jerking conclusion, while The Death of Mr. Lazarescu, I quote him, follows an older man seized with stomach pain who is shuffled from hospital to hospital as his condition deteriorates during the course of the long night, but a middle-aged ambulance attendant, Luminița Gheorghiu, refuses to abandon him. Potent meditation on bureaucracy and inhumanity breeds, long but compelling, a humanistic look at the sorry state of healthcare, which is apparently a universal problem. Maltin here suggests also Puiu's approach. As he deals with an apparently universal problem, he has a humanistic view, but unlike the physicians in his film, he does not judge or banter anyone, or unlike his neorealist masters, he does not fight the injustice of the world, but follows his hero up to the end of his journey. We have to remember Lazarescu's entire name, which is symbolic, Remus Dante Lazarescu. Remus is an allusion to Rome and Romanians' pride to have Latin roots, so it's an epitome for a Romanian citizen. Dante evokes a journey to the Inferno, while Lazarescu reminds of Lazarus raised from the dead by Jesus. Rahul Hamid, in 1000 Movies You Must See Before You Die, summarized Umberto D as a tragic and explicit melodramatic story on the despair and love of an old man for his pet, as well as his scathing commentary on the social injustice. For Leonard Maltin and Paolo Russo, Bicycle Thieves is about a man who spends a shattering week with his son, respectively about a desperate attempt to recover his stolen bicycle. In other words, it's about tension, it's about a thriller. With Puiu in Stuff and Dough, as well in The Death of Mr. Lazarescu, we can speak of anti-thrillers. In the first film, he does not insist on the contents of the small package that has to be sent by a messenger from Constanța to Bucharest. We can even say that we watch a failed thriller because in the end we can see the car of the pursuers riddled with bullets, but we don't see the scenes where are the shootings. One can also remember that the car disappeared after the young messenger had called his employer and told him about being followed. In The Death of Mr. Lazarescu, the a film by Cristi Puiu, and Police Adjective, a film by Corneliu Porumboiu. Corneliu Porumboiu's film is also not a real police thriller, but one told at a pace reminding us of real time. On the other hand, we deal with the very definition of the policeman, which makes him different from the one in American films. The policeman is supposed to enforce the law, not to question it and be a moralist, as the boss of the policeman says. An Austrian magazine has recently used the terms aesthetic der Excite, the aesthetics of real time, as the title of an article about Cristi Puiu's Aurora. The author even used the expression slow motion film mode. Indeed, Puiu's story about a serial killer surprises the audience with his denouement. But during 3 hours, the camera insists on details that thrillers ignore as being unimportant. We can conclude by accepting a paradox. In comparison with the Romanian dramas, the neo-realist ones seem melodramas. Romanian directors aspire to banality and sordid as a measure of veracity and reject the picturesque and sensational, while the neo-realist filmmakers were looking for typicality so they could choose a ravishing destiny or an explicit melodramatic story, as Rahul Hamid puts it, in order to reach their purpose, to be typical. In fact, Rahul Hamid begins his review on Umberto D by noticing that an important criticism to neo-realism is that melodramatic treatment of the story dilutes the broader social message of the film and its claim of realism. On the other hand, the anti-thriller character of some Romanian films, or their slow motion film mode, in the terms of Gunnar Landsegel from the Austrian magazine, could lead to another paradox. Genoveva Dimitrova traced the influence of The Death of Mr. Lazarescu on a Bulgarian documentary, Ilian Metev's Sofia's Last Ambulance from 2012, a film based on the reality of Bulgarian emergency medical service. Considering the fictional world of Puiu's classic film as a model of reality, which has in turn inspired Metev gritty documentary, might seem absurd, but Genoveva Dimitrova's observation to this effect is not only flattering, but also true. On the other hand, we could accept, like Variety's Derek Alley, Romanian type dramas, at least like Grungy, DV shot Miserabilist ones. Regarding the misery in Romanian films, I shall tell you a personal experience as organizer of programs of Romanian films abroad. Several Romanian embassies and cultural centers abroad asked me to present some films, Romanian films awarded at major festivals. So after I showed films like The Death of Mr. Lazarescu, 4 months, 3 weeks and 2 days by Cristian Mungiu, and 1208 East of Bucharest by Corneliu Porumboiu, all of them awarded in Cannes, the diplomats were not satisfied. They even desperately replied, "You brought only gloomy films about the death of an old man, about abortion and the times of Ceausescu, etc. Couldn't you bring some nice love stories filmed in picturesque landscapes?" I replied, helpless, that I showed good Romanian films which received big awards in Cannes and Berlin, and unfortunately there are not recent Romanian films with love stories in picture landscapes, not even bad ones. Similar fear of self-representation expressed the late socialist minister Giulio Andreotti in the 50s about the neorealist films. He described them as dirty laundry that shouldn't be washed and hung out to dry in the open. Thank you.
Thank you.
There are some images from the films.
Yes, okay. Now I want to give floor to Professor Ingeborg Direkcieva from the Institute of Art Studies. Okay.
You don't have teachers on my computer.
Just ask comment to. Камен, може ли да? Там трябва да има нещо да. Ето отзад за тебе. Камене, дали може да включим на нейния компютър въобще? Дали ще стане? Всичко имам. Що?
И сега?
Ето ти една флашка.
Аз имам флашка.
Добре.
Сега ги свалям тук пред хората.
Окей.
Аз трябва да...
So, one change again. We have a technical problem, so I would ask first Ralica Senova to come, and Professor Ingeborg Bretova will wait a little. If Inge, ако имате проблем да изчакаме Ралица.
Не, аз просто го прехвърлям веднага.
Okay. Sorry.
Може ли да чакаме да ги помолиш? Докато чакаме да ги помолиш, докато смисъл да говори другия, да прехвърлиме, който има презентация при мен на този.
Ето, готова съм с
Окей,
ето я. Само че сега какво да я прави?
Ралица, ти имаш ли презентация? Не, няма да имаш. Okay, I would like to ask everybody who has a presentation just to go to the other room there and give it to comment so that we should not lose time.
Така ще го направим на фулскрин. Ето.
Не, трябва да се върнем.
Добре.
Да, абсолютно.
Okay, so new art cinema in the Balkans, trans-territoriality and intertextuality.
The title of my paper, contains too many terms which sound excessively general and need to be clarified before we start reflecting on particularities. What is art cinema? What do I invest in the term the Balkans? What do I have in mind when talking about transterritoriality? Why focusing exactly on intertextuality? And last but not least, how new have to be the films I choose to comment on, because it's new art cinema. Too many questions. So I will start with explaining intertextuality, because intertextuality is a concept with many different functions. Leaving aside its broadest understanding, as argued by Yulia Kristeva and Roland Barthes, that all texts are actually intertextual, one can define intertextuality as a storytelling device which occurs when a film includes other films, texts, or parts of film and text through references and quotes. More than 30 years ago, Umberto Eco, in his article Innovation in the Serial, the Italian title is L'innovazione nel seriale, distinguished intertextuality as a characteristic of aesthetic in postmodern media. Eco pointed out that in order to have a function, intertextuality must be acknowledged by the spectator. Quotes in films can have different degrees of ambiguity and thereby require different forms of knowledge on the part of the viewer. Eco's point is that function of intertextuality depends on both the clarity of the question marks and the viewer's cultural frame of reference. I have to underline that it is not possible to put actual question marks in films. Thus, Eco writes about, quote, invisible quotation marks. References and quotes cannot be identified on screen in a simple manner because they do not have a specific form as in written punctuation. Rather, the audiovisual medium requires them to be marked in other ways in order to allow them to achieve significance. The Danish scholar Helle Kanek-Harstrup, in her article Storytelling Intertextuality, published in Film International in March 2014, emphasizes also on the difference between explicit intertextuality, it means when a film includes explicit references, and implicit intertextuality. Quote, implicit intertextuality is the more unmanageable and less interesting form, because I don't think it's less interesting, because it's not made clear, and therefore recognition of the part of the viewer is somewhat left to chance. It is entirely dependent upon the viewer's cultural frame of reference. On my part, I would like to contextualize the discussion about cinematic intertextuality in the frameworks of European film, and more specifically in the perspective of the cinema in the Balkans. In the last decade, cinema in the Balkans has shared the general tendency of European filmmaking toward integration. Balkan cinema industries and West European film producers have worked in cooperation to trying to develop a common formula of European co-production, laying aside the theoretical construction of national cinema. Thus, I will reflect if imposing co-production as a filmmaking practice has impact on intertextuality in Balkan cinema, because this would be a good starting point for exploring intertextuality in terms of shared themes, tropes, narrative strategies, visual aesthetics, and genres. For the purpose of my analysis, I have chosen two films created as co-productions between different Balkan countries. The first, this is IIIZK-BAS, Once Upon a Time in Anatolia, this film from 2011. A co-production between Turkey and Bosnia and Herzegovina, and Dogs 2016. It's a broader co-production with Romania, France, Bulgaria, and Qatar. Romania and Qatar are not Balkan countries, but it's a Balkan co-production. Both movies have an impressive international reception. They are awarded with high prizes from the Cannes Film Festival, which is the highest approval for the qualities of European film. Once Upon a Time has the grand prize of the jury in 2011, and Dogs the prestigious FIPRESS Award. Both directors, Nuri Bilge Ceylan and Bogdan Milica, skillfully mix crime and Western genres to produce their art films. Noel Carroll argues in The Future of Illusion, this is his article from 1982, that the American genre film from the 60s and the 70s and the European art film imminently have an intertextual structure. The genre film, according to Carroll, can be understood on a literal level as having an, quote, action, drama, fantasy packed message, end quote. And for the cineast, this type of film offers, quote, hermetic, camouflaged, and recondite message. To Carroll, the rise of illusionism is synonymous with the widespread reworking of genre films, a typical phenomenon of the cinema in the 90s, in the 70s and 80s. Moreover, genre reworking of genre films are still important strategies in art cinema. Therefore, Ceylan and Milica build the intertextual structures of their works with explicit narrative and visual references to the 1960 westerns, but at the same time operate with narrative and textual qualities that oppose to the characteristic and conventional cinema. For example, long shots, not linear, and episodic narration strategies, le temps mort, thematic ambiguities, intentional displays of cinematic style, all these are features of art cinema. Once Upon a Time in Anatolia, as its title says, plays in Anatolia, but is constructed after the model of Sergio Leone's Once Upon a Time in the West. This is the movie of 1968. And his press conference some years ago in Sofia, Ceylan absolutely honestly and openly admitted that he made his film after the model of Sergio Leone's film. It is worth to mention that Leone's film itself is exclusively built on the intertextual references. Both films, Anatolia and Upon a Time in the West, are dominated by explicit intertextuality. Dogs, on its part, is elaborated predominantly with implicit intertextuality and depends much more, as Harstup says, upon the viewer's cultural frame of reference. Both Balkan directors, Ceylan and Milica, strive to construct an image of the Wild East in the way the Wild West is represented in Western genre. Operating with an excessive implicit intertextuality, both directors put an enormous emphasis on the sense of place, making the wilderness of Anatolian Dobruja to a real protagonist of their films. Both directors create stunning landscapes playing with natural light of all phases of the day. But both put their, and this is a frame, this is a picture of from Ceylan's film Once Upon a Time in Anatolia. And this is a frame from Milica's Dogs. You can look how similar both directors shoot the wilderness. There are very obvious visual references in Milica's film to Ceylan's film, and probably not only to Ceylan's film, but to all Western style of representing the landscape. Both put their characters in situations of uncertainty and wandering in the night wilderness. Ceylan seeks the effect of contrast between darkness and light, leaving the headlights of cars to pierce the total darkness of the light. These are the pictures from Ceylan's films. Unfortunately, I tried to find some picture in the press package, and even in the internet, on the internet, from dogs with white piercings, the piercing the darkness. Probably for my publication, Marianne helped me, but believe me, people who have seen the movie will testify that that are obvious visual references in dogs to Anatolia. Do you testify, Maria?
Yes.
Yes, because the movie is not yet popular. It had only 2 screenings in Sofia in the last 3 weeks, and I don't think that the other people have seen the movie.
Those shows are mostly out by night, and that's why probably they didn't choose them. And they're not.
I think
great.
when I saw the dogs, I thought, oh, he's it's very intertextual to Anatolia, to J1's films. Right? Milke prefers explicit intertextuality when working with exact quotations from Once Upon a Time in Anatolia to create an atmosphere of ambiguity and intimidation in the night scene of dogs. Both directors choose similar characters, like the powerless policeman. This is a picture from 2 pictures from dogs. This is one of the main characters, and here are a group of powerless policemen who are seeking for the shallow grave of the person who was killed. The powerless policeman who ultimately proves to be a seeker of justice. The brutal criminal. This is the brutal criminal in Once Upon a Time in Anatolia. This is the almost dying here in this picture. Brutal criminal, very brutal criminal in dogs. I would say by the end of my presentation that there are no any influence on the style of the movie from the co-producers like Bulgaria and Qatar. I mean in dogs. But I read the original screen in the film, and in the original screen script in the original script it was said just as words. It wasn't shown that the mother of this very brutal criminal, Samir, used to be Bulgarian. In the short movie was no more Bulgarian mother.
But Samir, it's a strange name for
It's,
Romanian.
yeah, it's strange. No, yes, it sounds like maybe something foreign, but no Bulgarian mother. There is no Bulgarian mother. Yes, that's what I say. This is the this brutal criminal. The hesitating protagonist. The hesitating protagonist. Here is the hesitating protagonist of dogs, and I think I have no. I don't have here the hesitating protagonist. Okay. The innocent beauty, and put them in identical conflicts and situations. However, Milke uses intertextual patterns from J1's film to create opposite meanings. J1 treats the culmination of his narrative as a turning point of enlightenment and purification. Milke resolves the dramatic conflict in a very pessimistic manner. Despite his obvious intertextual approach to J1 films, the Romanian director conceptualizes in a different, more socially oriented, even political direction. J1 works and presents and treats the whole story on a very existential level, and he emphasizes on this existential level. Milke is occupied with problems deeply rooted in Romanian social reality, and his film gives insight into conflicts of contemporary Romania as well. J1, on the other hand, claims not to be a director who plays with Turkish or Balkan identity. Quote, I'm not a director who would make movies about the special Balkan qualities, because I'm seeking in my work first and foremost after differences between the immediate reality and the reality created with the means of art. Otherwise, this comparative analysis of Once Upon a Time in Anatolian Dogs proves that their directors share the same cultural frame of reference, which is related very little to the world outside of cinema. They share one and the same cultural frame of reference is, let's say, related to cinema history. Cinema is reading itself in their films. The intertextuality of their narratives is not related to the transterritoriality of the productions. Both of the directors express themselves as authors or auteurs, without bothering about the distinctiveness and identities of the co-producers. So, transterritoriality of production in these cases do not exercise any influence on their styles and artistic performances. And so the very long and I hope the very long and complicated title of my paper became a little clearer. And I think that it became clear.
Thank you.
This is wonderful.
Thank you for the interesting paper. And we have another change here. Dionysios Skliris, our colleague from Greece, didn't manage to come to Bulgaria, so I shall give floor to Ralitza Asenova, who is working in France at the association IIIZK. Is it so? Okay, complete. And she's going to speak about the poetics and politics in the works of Pier Paolo Pasolini and Pippo del Bono. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good afternoon. I know some of you, but not all, so I think I'll present myself briefly. My name is Ralitza Stenova, and I've studied in Paris at La Sorbonne, and afterwards in the University of Bologna, both cinema and theater studies. And afterwards, I did a master's degree in the Institute of European Studies, more based on cultural projects in Europe. And now I'm working as you told previously, in Association IIIZK and also for different cultural projects involved in cinema education for youth. Well, now I saw that the next panel is dedicated to crossing theater boards, so I guess my paper will be more like a transition between what you've already talked about cinema and in theater, because the part of my research that I will present you now is exactly on this subject, on the border between cinema and theater, between two Italian artists, Pier Paolo Pasolini and Pippo del Bono, both of them working in theater and cinema, living in different time, but still reunited by their engagement in the social and political context of their times, and by the search of poetry in their aesthetics. I called this small part of my research Amore e Rabbia, which means love and anger and rage. And I've chosen it because these two elements define many of the aesthetic choices of the two artists. And also because this is a name of a collective Italian film directed in 1969 and composed by 5 episodes. And one of them it's done by Pasolini, and I chose it because these two elements define many of the aesthetic choices of the two artists, and also because this is a name of a collective Italian film In analyzing his work in L'Arabia, Del Bono wonders whether it is the search for love of which the performance brings him closer to Pasolini. The constant search for love assumes the function of a leitmotif in the works of the two artists, but this love, its confirmation, is also a singular language to express the range, the passion, the subjectivity of the human existence. And this major, it is poetic but also very violent within the two authors, and its manifestation is an act of freedom that could be transformed into a monster if it remains unplied. Besides, the feeling of guilt takes on a strong dimension in Pasolini's work, as well as in Del Bono's one. The culpability born of the bourgeois condition in particular, Pasolini examined it in relation to the belonging, desire or not, of this social class. According to him, we, spectators, readers, individuals of the society are already bourgeois, therefore already guilty for a series of events, since we are indifferent towards the complexity of the reality just by projecting into a dream that approaches or which produces the utilities of a bourgeois existence. Del Bono first expressed personal guilt, born of his own personal experience, to climb it later in a social dimension, oriented above all to the civilization, which, according to him, hidden behind democracy, refuses to assume the necessary responsibility. He is in constant relation to the social injustice in all his work. Del Bono is working, as Pasolini did it as well, with lots of non-professional actors, often marginalized persons that he met by chance. All of his recent works are including one actor, and I'm sorry that I didn't prepare a presentation and I could show it, that he met by chance, and his name is Bobo. Del Bono met this little dancer who danced and danced among others. Del Bono defines Bobo like this: in a psychiatric hospital in Neapel, where Bobo lived more than 40 years of his life in miserable conditions. The film that Del Bono defines to him is called Grito, which means shout, and which moves not only because of its purpose, the destiny of this person, but also because it unfolds a long period of life of Del Bono. Bobo is microcephalic and deaf-mute. He's an invalid, and will become one of the main actors of the company of Pippo Del Bono, and also unchanging participants of any public event around it. In Del Bono's latest film, Amore Carne, that he did in 2011-12, he presents him as a father, brother, lover, and a friend. He incarnates real characters on stage, but there is always the primordial relation with the person of Bobo, who emerges and brings something of its universe on stage. In his entire work, Pasolini delivers us a strong presence of passion and desire, which are often the reflection of contradictory loves in his life. At a very young age in Gasarca, where he passed most of his childhood, he was seduced by masculine beauty, and then when his relations became known to everyone, he began an unequal struggle with society and the church. In his writings on homosexual relations, for instance, the poetic collection La Meglio Gioventù, and later the novel Amado Mio, Pasolini feels a sense of guilt and awaits a probable punishment for its initial sin that he is integrating later in all his work, especially in his cinema. Later, in the popular districts of Rome, Pasolini met Ninetto Davoli, who was 14 years old at that time. In him, the director discovers a different and luminous vitality. He will often demonstrate it in the various roles he entrusts to him. Davoli is the symbolic link between two worlds, the ancient and the contemporary, in Purcile, for instance. In Teorema, he is the carefree messenger, an angel dancing joy, who warns the bourgeois family at important events. He plays Aziz in the Thousand and One Nights, Andreuccio in Decameron, and Othello, alongside the iconic Italian actor, Totò, in the medium-length film called What Are the Clouds? Che cosa sono le nuvole? The whole work of Del Bono is this synthesis between the experience of life and the one on the stage. The life outside teaches a theatrical dynamics, the importance of precision within the relation between the characters, which nourishes scenic and poetic writing. Consequently, the reflection, the question, of self-biography emerges. In Pasolini, this dimension is subjected to an articulate reflection and to application to other subjects. In the film, for instance, Oedipo Rex, he recounts through the prism of his own complex of Oedipus and told a completely metaphorical and therefore mythologized autobiography. The exploration of the biographical framework carries in itself a subjectivity, such as in the case in the film La Ricotta episode, which is part of the film with sketches Robopac, done in 1963. Individuality, the figure of the author, played by Orson Welles, a prototype of Pasolini itself, is placed at the center and its point of view became the collective narrative. Within Pippo del Bono, the autobiographical elements, its relation between stage memory and the personal point of view, the context and the characters. It's immediately part of the travel through the eye of the camera through different countries. We can see Berlin, Paris, Turin, and Bucharest. The film stops in the rehearsal last show, Dopo la battaglia, after the battle, and meets face to face the actress, his partner in this play, Irene Jacob. Of Del Bono is a constant search of movement, like a contemporary nomad who reveals his seropositivity in the first scene of the film, in the opening scene. The spectator becomes co-author of the narrative. He crosses the proposed path from joy to sadness. The biographical ingredient in Del Bono's work can be considered to dissolve into several levels. A first one which is invested directly in the composition, a second that participates as a filter for the audience, and the third one which proposes to this same audience, to the spectator, the possibility to include this universe and to include its own existential path. Whether it is a beautiful dream or a nightmare, the audience encounters this universe where the author transmits the strength of his autobiographical language. This construction of the narrative is done by transgressing the reality, but not to make it a documentation, but to reproduce it in poetry. After examining the different images of the daily chronicle, Del Bono grabs them to make them revive, to make a replay on stage or on the screen. Thus, it creates a depth of field. It captures life from a very precise distance, but extending its time and space outside of the concrete story that he is taking in consideration for his work. For instance, the performance in Silenzio, the silence, and La Menzogna, the Menzogna is the lie, the devastating earthquake for the first play, and the burning of the ThyssenKrupp factory in Turan for the second. Pasolini and Del Bono are bound by a force of thought going against the usual standards. Their art draws on doses of reality, social strike, and political rickness, but all under the shelter of poetry.
Thank you. I think we had three marvelous papers. Two of them were all connected because the Balkan cinema is here, and the third one also showed some parallels because both in the papers of Marian Tutui and Ingeborg Bratova, they referred to different films as the film of classical film of Sergio Leone in transformed and intertextualized in the films of Jaylan and America, and Mariam made a parallel with the neorealism and its classical films, The Thieves of Bicycle Thieves and Umberto D. If you have,
it was a session about theism.
yes, of course. So please, if you have any questions, don't be shy to ask. Yeah, thank you.
I have a question to Maria sitting on my side. First of all, I want to express my pleasure to hear this comparative analysis and to, let's say, influences for intertextual. Neo-realistic intertextuality into new Romanian new way. And I version 6.9 on the scale of Richter, which is a comedy, comedy.
Yes.
I would say very stupid movie. It's not so dull. And when I saw the movie, I always thought you, Marianne, because you have always problems with typing in Google. Anyway, but to be serious, I would ask you to speculate in very few sentences, two words on the recent movie of Bruno and put it into a context of your presentation.
You see,
And tell me why the movie is called Fear and Above. Because nobody can tell me.
Nobody knows.
no
Maybe
reason.
Puyo himself.
Somebody told me there was something with an image that he saw, a poster. So it's
Intertextual.
Intertextuality.
no, it's such a trifle. It has nothing. It's not something hidden.
Deeply implied.
No. Even it's in a way absurd because there is everything else but Sierra Nevada. It's a crowded apartment in a crowded Bucharest. No, it's not the mountains. About the other thing, okay, I didn't use in my comparison, let's say, Sierra Nevada, because in fact, okay, to say that there is something similar between neorealism and Romanian New Wave, okay, normal, everybody saw it. But what I wanted to stress, and that's why I used certain films and some big voices, important voices, who used melodrama and very very hard drama for the Romanian ones and melodrama for the Italian ones was exactly for two films that are considered typical for Italy, or really, that is Umberto D and Bicycle Thieves, and also Stuff and Go, and so I used other voices in order to be more, how do you say, persuasive, because otherwise, okay, I saying that, but it's also Sadul that said that this is melodrama, not real drama, while let's say for Maltin, um, the Romanian films are really dramas, which means others are not really dramas. Okay, what is interesting about Sierra Nevada, okay, we can talk about also that for me it was a big surprise that I realized that somehow Christian Puyu has also the sense of humor. I didn't. I hated when the critics said that there is black humor in Lazarescu, and that if that is a comedy, that means Nana Muscuri young. So it's absurd. There is a kind of humor that harsh humor of the physicians, the typical
medical humor.
doctor humor, but it's very banal. You cannot say that Lazarescu is funny, while when it's about Sierra Nevada, there is humor. Yes, okay. It's not a comedy. It's not a comedy, but there is humor, and maybe this is one of the reasons that it makes you watch it, although it's 3 hours long. While the other film you mentioned by American Film, okay, it can work. It's a comedy.
I make a joke.
No, but it's the worst film by Karanfil.
Yes.
Karanfil is a great director, and he made very good films. He's the only one who fights against many ways. I mean, he doesn't fight, but he's doing something
difference.
else. Very good. This film, okay, he loved very much those musicals, and he wanted to make one.
Maybe this is Bulgarian.
Aferin is also co-production of Bulgaria.
Yes, I wanted to ask a question because your paper is named the new wave drama. Is it a new genre? Is it?
Oh,
it is just a metaphor. Yes, it is not a genre.
It was I don't know, provocative.
Yeah.
Question.
It is a
I mean,
metaphor.
if we talk before of that of drama, that is very dramatic. So it's another drama, let's say.
Yeah, and you just invented some new genres as anti-thriller. I like this very much.
Not me.
Anti-thriller is just exactly what you see in Police Adjective. No, Sierra Nevada is another thing. It is drama, it is family, it is connections. But what can we say about Police Adjective? Because we have a policeman, we have drugs, we have people, we have surveillance or something, and everything is so slow. And so you have no, it is anti-thriller, yes. And I like this film very much. Nevertheless, it's very slow in the
They
pace.
said that it's like a film in a very small town, and you put a camera into a police unit, and you see what they will do. And almost nothing happens.
Oh, yeah.
By the way, could I say something?
Yes, but Camelia was first.
Sorry, please.
Okay, I have another question. It's a question to Radissa.
Oh, yeah.
I think it's connected with people that are strategy, especially this study is based on working with level. And what kind of reception strategy IIIZK-BAS. What kind of discussion he wants to provoke with the audience?
I don't know if it has really a strategy. I remember the first time when I spoke in Italy, it was the strategy by birth, and it was really blessed as a strategy for child. And then we started to talk about life, about love, about his condition, his illness, etc. So I don't know if it's a real strategy. I think what I saw and also the last performance that we decided this winter, it really includes those people that are disabled, but that are also completely marginalized. Mobile and also other. So it's really including the outside, including the social condition. So including what is around us on stage, and in Western Europe, it's always working in a way. So I think if we talk about strategy, it's really this inclusion of the context in what is around us, but always age with special poetical notes. It's not good, even if we're talking about immigration, about it's never good.
He used very strong images, like his mother, the death of his mother, and his body. And what kind of answer from the viewers from the audience?
I think it's a provocation, not shocking, but really provocation about to think about what the images are bringing. I think he's always working on provocation on the image, because all his plays, performances are more with no narrative classical language, always more parts, always more small episodes, with the mother, with the dance, etc. So I think he's really including these images in the whole performance, and the spectators are like they have to think about what they're doing on stage.
You wanted to ask?
I wanted to, I don't know, to add something in the sense of the demonstration of Ingeborg. I mean, I think maybe that Milica for dogs shows as place of the action Dobruja. There is a place. There is some talking about this. It's that territory between the Danube and the sea, which is bound to be connected somehow with contrabanda, with smuggling. And maybe it's also, it shows Dobroja also because it's a co-production of Bulgaria. Maybe. And
It's not shocking Bulgarian country.
yes, of course, but somehow it's something that sounds something to Bulgaria. Okay. And the second thing is another thing that there is Milica, of course, having in mind this tradition of Western. Not only that, for instance, when he made the policeman in the last stage of his cancer, lung cancer, he's alone. He doesn't have any power. He's like I don't know, a lonely sheriff somewhere in the west. And also this Dobroja that is bound to become a territory of smuggling. It's like the frontier, exactly. And not to mention that on the other hand, Anatolia, as I don't know, as climate and everything, it's very similar with Arizona or New Mexico. So it's normal in a way. And you know, when culture and tradition, it's about intertextuality. When we watch so many films it's normal to think about something that was before. Even if the director didn't, it doesn't matter. Maybe Milita didn't think at all, or Ceylan about this, but because we are, I don't know, cultivated and watch more films, we can say that.
I use this in a positive
Yes,
sense.
yes.
And do you remember in Anatolia, the child of the policeman was very he is the, it made him as a human somehow helpless. Yeah, he had the power of a policeman, but his child was done. And they talked about it. And then, I don't know if he made it consciously.
It doesn't matter. We are allowed to have in mind those things. It's normal. We are not. Film has already a history of more than 100 years.
I think it was, what did you say that Romania and Qatar are not in the Balkans?
No, I said that France and Qatar are not.
No, you said
Because
Romania.
I'm sorry. I like to say that Bulgaria and Romania.
But no, even Qatar. Qatar Airlines serve in Balkan countries.
Yeah, sure. Okay, any other questions or some, yes, Alexander Domev?
I want to use the opportunity that Marianne is here with us and to ask him us outside of the topic of this paper, but also connected to it. It's about the origin of the Romanian way. Is it true or just an anecdote that this generation of Romanian directors have been specially trained at the film academy to work in this minimalistic style?
Something is true. I mean, there is only 2 directors who have studied abroad.
Who is one of them?
No, that's no. His parents live in Germany, but he studied here. No, it's a girl who studied in Prague, and Puyu who studied in Switzerland. But the others, all of them have been students of our family, or our film academy. But if you ask them, especially Puyu, he will say he will reject any, let's say, tradition. I mean, he's very harsh with everybody. For a while, he admitted as a predecessor Pintilie, but then he throw away also Pintilie. And usually they complain about their professors in the university and everything. And on the other hand, it's true that in the 90s, when, I don't know, the late 90s, when Puyu made his first films and when the money was so little, and so they had to make money, to make films really minimalistic. And we make fun of this, because even those films made for weddings have better music, better titles, and everything. Now they are doing maybe on purpose sometimes, but they really didn't have money for even for posters, even for to buy a music score and everything. So they had to adapt contemporary topics, filming only in big towns or Bucharest. No music, no posters, no I don't know, their own stories. So finally, the Romanian New Wave is an adaptation to a certain situation. Indeed, we can say that they are connected with somehow with the Romanian film tradition, and they are taught in Romania. And recently, abroad, people discovered that there were quite good films even before that. And so not everything begins with Christie. Although he really believes that. And
Oh, really?
I agree with him in a certain way. It's very embarrassing for the other directors. But everybody is right in his way. So it's not an anecdote. It's somehow true.
Anybody else? You don't have any more questions, I suppose. Okay, let's have a 15 minutes coffee break. And we should start a little bit earlier because it is not necessary to have a big break. Muhabbet.
I have it in PDF because I did the keynotes, so I just prefer to use PDF because PowerPoint is quite bad friend to our keynote.
Park Hotel Moscow.